But we're going to start tonight by doing the left's impotent 2028 field. It's never too early to look ahead. Who the heck knows what's going to happen in 4 years or 3 years, I guess now, in the 2028 election cycle. But I was fascinated to see that the left's trying to put together some sort of group of people that they will select from for 2028. And I will say it's not a promising list. It's not looking that good. The Hill did this, by the way, the top 10 Democratic contenders for 2028. And I think we should just go through them. Is there anyone here you're scared of? Anyone here that you think is going to potentially win or could actually even win the nomination? It's hard to believe. They have this is from their contender rankings. They literally have at number 10, Stephen A. Smith. Now, Stephen A. Smith is he's an ESPN personality who kind of just barely sort of confirmed he might think about running. And already he's on the list at number 10. This is how pathetic this field is. This is how thin the bench is for the Democratic Party. Now, I mean, you look over at the opponents. I know a lot of people are talking about the third term thing for Donald Trump. You know, it's not my bag. But I will say J.D. Vance looks like the clear leader, unless things go particularly poorly for the Trump administration. You still see people like Ron DeSantis on the other side, a couple of others that could sneak in there. But like, you know, the right has I think a sane, sensible path forward. It's kind of logical where they might go. The other side, not so much. I mean, Stephen A. Smith is making the list. I mean, honestly, would you even have known he was a Democrat? I mean, he surely kind of sounds like that sometimes, but I don't think that was even really public information very recently. But he's number 10. Number 9, Rahm Emanuel, like the chief of staff for Barack Obama. I know the right, looks at the Obama era a little bit differently than the left. The left thought the Obama era was a huge success. I would say it was not. And I know they want to go back to the Obama era because everything they've done since has been an obvious and overt failure. But Rahm Emanuel, really? He wound up being mayor of Chicago after that. But really, has anyone talked about him in years? It's hard to imagine he would even have a chance. Number 8 is Pete Buttigieg. Now, Mayor Pete was a mayor of a town. He was criticized by the Biden campaign for not filling potholes. That was his wonderful run. I guess he did better than the typical mayor no one had ever heard of. Like, usually that happens. You get into that race, and even like on the right, the mayor of Miami ran, and people weren't really familiar with him. Didn't really go anywhere. Mayor Pete did kind of rise up, get to the high single digits when he ran back in the day. But does anyone really think that he's a threat? He was kind of promoted as this big guy. And I swear the Biden administration was like, Pete Buttigieg might be some competition for us. Let's bring him into the role that is the worst possible role in government, transportation secretary, which he idiotically accepted. And then just watch as trains derailed all over the place and poisonous gas was released. That was his legacy. So I don't know. The fact that he's number 8 is it's got to be terrifying for you if you're on the left. Number 7, J.B. Pritzker. I mean, who put together this list? This is a catastrophe. There he is, J.B. Attractive man, sure. But is he really a contender? The one reason, of course, he would be talked about at all in this context is he has a lot of money. He's a billionaire. So you can never count out a billionaire. You can spend a lot and you can buy a bunch of votes. Didn't work for Michael Bloomberg. I doubt it's going to work for J.B. Pritzker. But he's there at all. Now you might say, like, okay, this field sucks so far. Then where's the big names? Because so far this is a bunch of nobodies outside of Stephen A. Smith, who almost certainly won't run. But number 6, get the big names start. Kamala Harris. Yeah, they are actually putting her on the list of contenders for 2028 after what happened. She ran in 2020. She failed miserably in 2020. She then became vice president as a gift because I guess when you call Joe Biden racist, you get rewarded by becoming the vice president of the United States. She runs that into the ground. She somehow, without getting any votes, becomes the nominee because suddenly people are convinced that the thing that we all saw with Joe Biden over all of these years was actually true. And then she gets, demolished in the actual campaign. I mean, she didn't get demolished. And she lost a somewhat close election, but she lost all 7 swing states. That's kind of bad, right? Again, it's in between a blowout and a super razor-thin election. It wasn't 2000, but it wasn't 2008 either. I mean, it was in the middle there. But Kamala Harris, really? If she's on your list, you should flush the list. Number 5, and this is one I see a lot of hype for on the left, is Governor Wes Moore. You might not know him at all. He is the governor of Maryland. Hasn't really accomplished an awful lot, kind of an unknown nationally, but he's generally a pretty good communicator, a guy who is on the left, would hit some of the intersectional barriers that must be breached each time you pick someone. You can't pick based on merit, obviously, alone. It has to be skin color or genitals have to be mixed into the conversation. So Wes Moore is a guy who does have some, he seems to be an Obama favorite, seems to have some buzz on the left. I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of remains in the top half of a top 10 here over the next few years. I am more surprised that they're even trying this with number 4, Gavin Newsom. Newsom, look, he's been a catastrophe for the state of California. Let's be honest about it. He was awful during COVID. He went out to dinner when he was trying to convince everyone else they needed to be in lockdown. That was just a total disaster. He almost got recalled. And people are like, well, he won that election by a large margin. Yeah, I mean, just getting recalled at all is pretty bad. And it was pretty close. I mean, he was going up against Republicans who obviously Republican candidates in California have a very low chance of actually winning an election. And yet it was still pretty close up until the last couple of weeks where he opened up a lead. And then after that, burned the state to the ground. Now, I don't think he actually lit the fires. At least I'm not fully convinced that he specifically himself, lit a match and threw it into a field. I don't know that he specifically did that, but the recovery has been a disaster. The situation with the way he responded was terrible. Wasn't all his fault, just mostly. So that's going to turn him into a presidential candidate. I don't even understand it. By the way, Newsom is commenting on the future of the party. He says, I don't even know what the party is. And, of course, how could he know? He changes his opinions every 5 days. How could he possibly know what's going on with the party? Just the other day, he was like, of course I'm against men and women's sports. Like, where did this guy come from? He's trying to come off as this sensible Democrat, which is a path that is dangerous to Republicans. Someone who actually sounds sensible on the left, who isn't constantly embracing nine-month abortions and, men and women's sports and, trans porn for your third year grader in school, like all that crap. If you go away from that and shun that and sort of outwardly run against it and say, I'm not that kind of Democrat, there's a real vulnerability for the right with that type of person. I'm scared of it, frankly, because, there's not a lot of Republicans who can handle this. And we will see. Gavin Newsom is not the guy to pull off that strategy, though. He is a far left, insane person. But here is what he says about the party itself. We have not done a forensic of what just went wrong. Period. Full stop, Newsom said. I don't think I know it. I mean, to the extent that I'm marginally part of this party, now he's like distancing himself. See, I'm not really a Democrat. I'm sensible. I represent the state larger than 21 state populations combined. And I can assure you that there has not been a party discussion that I'm aware of that has included the state of California. Later in the interview, Newsom said he wasn't sure what the Democratic Party truly represents, who it's leading, and where it wants to go. I don't know what the party is. I'm still struggling with that. Well, no one knows what the party is. There's a battle going on the left, and you're kind of seeing that play out. Now, Gavin Newsom is not a representative of the sane wing, if there is one, of the Democratic Party. He is completely nuts, and up until last week was a far leftist. He's going to go bounce back and forth because, he doesn't truly believe in much of anything other than the fact that Gavin Newsom's awesome. Like, that is the kind of the beginning and end of his belief system, but that's where he is right now. Number 3 on this list is Gretchen Whitmer. Again, Gretchen Whitmer at number 3 is a disaster. She's terrible. She was terrible during COVID. She had some sympathy because of what they said was a kidnapping scheme of her in Michigan, and so she was able to kind of hang on to power. But she is not a national figure. She's not someone who I think is a real threat to win the nomination, let alone the presidency. And, the fact that you're that close, you get her at number 3 is it's got to make you really nervous as a Democrat. Now, number 2 on the list is somebody who I think does have some potential and is, I think, a bit scary to the right. It's Josh Shapiro. Shapiro's handled a lot of the situations in his state pretty well. And I mean that not necessarily is that he runs the state well, but that he is able to kind of navigate the PR windfall that has hit him on the positive and negative side. He did a pretty good job coming out talking about against political violence and he kind of talked about it on either side of the aisle when it came to his house being burned down. He has the same sort of sympathetic view, at least among most Americans, because of that incident. Now, look, those incidents were totally different. His house really was lit on fire, by the way, lit on fire by a crazy person who was anti-Israel. That he didn't get the same sympathy from the media because of that, because they, of course, are sympathetic with the Hamas side of the argument. And I think for that reason, it's the reason why he was not the VP candidate and dummy Tim Walz was, because he's Jewish. And there is an anti-Jew, anti-Israel vibe on the left, a good chunk of it. There's a Hamas wing of the party that's not going to let this happen. And so Josh Shapiro is running up against not only any conservative candidate that might be out there, J.D. Vance, which would be a difficult person to go up against in a nomination battle for a presidential battle. This is, of course, if he wins the nomination. But also he's got to win that side of his party, and he's got to go up against, I don't know, what's the percentage that just hates Israel and anything associated with Jews? 30, 40, 50% of the party? I don't know what it is. It's really high. And it prevented him from being the VP nominee. It may have prevented Kamala Harris from winning. I mean, again, Tim Walz was a real negative on that campaign. He was a disaster. By the way, you notice Tim Walz, I'll spoil the rest of this list. He's not number one. He's not even anywhere on this top 10 list. He was a disaster. Josh Shapiro would have been formidable. And, I'm glad they didn't put him in there because remember, as I said, it was not 2008. This was not a 2000 election that was, within a 500 votes in one state. But there were 7 swing states. Trump did win them all, but the one he won in the biggest blowout of the 3 blue wall states he needed to win, she needed to win one of those states. The biggest blowout was 2 points, 2%. This was a relatively close election. And who knows? I don't think Shapiro would have made the difference, but certainly would have been closer. But the number one, and this is fascinating, this used to be a joke. We've joked about this before. We joked about how they never run AOC as a nominee. Yeah, AOC, number one, the number one possibility, according to The Hill, for 2028. And I will say there is a path there. The path is people really don't like Donald Trump. The presidency goes terrible, and they'll just reflect to whatever Democrat wins. And she's seen as the only one taking this seriously. Look, she is blatantly, and this is happening with, I believe, Bernie Sanders, they are trying to give her the Bernie Sanders position in the party, which is lead contender to the establishment. Right? They want to make AOC the face of the party. There's nothing better to me when it comes to Democrats than AOC becoming the face of the party, with the possible exception of Jasmine Crockett. Right? Like that would be awesome too, to be truthful. But making AOC the voice of the left is a good thing for Republicans generally, but if things go very badly, like if there's a massive economic crisis, then any Democrat will win. And if she can win the nomination, she can. That's where the energy of the party is. We will see if that happens. The next AOC, young Democrats are aiming to topple incumbents inside their own party. There's for many of these young candidates, their campaigns are centered around a shared dissatisfaction with how sitting lawmakers have fought back against Trump's second term. This is the argument for AOC and how she could potentially win. Democratic leaders are divided on whether to support this effort. They'll come up with a reason not to support it because they're going to want to put an establishment type person in there. And AOC doesn't get along with a lot of them, but it's not impossible, boys and girls. By the way, also in the mix, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, I don't buy it. Senator Cory Booker, he gave that big, long speech, and now he's all the way down here in the also-rans. Senator John Fetterman, which I don't believe would happen. Ro Khanna, again, probably not. Amy Klobuchar, no. Senator Chris Murphy, no. John Ossoff, probably more popular, more possible than many of the others on this list. And finally, the last one on the also-rans, Governor Tim Stupid Walz.